I stared in disbelief at Olivia, my daughter-in-law, standing over the toilet with my antique diamond earrings dangling from her fingers. Her face drained of color as our eyes met. I was just admiring them, she stammered, her voice trembling. In my bathroom, with the door closed? I challenged, my heart pounding. Those earrings were the last gift from my late husband before cancer took him. Olivia swallowed hard. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. You're right, you shouldn't have, I snapped, snatching the earrings from her grasp. How dare you go through my private things? Her eyes narrowed. It's not like you even wear them anymore. The callous remark stung. Ever since my son Bryce had married this young woman 2 years ago, I'd noticed a steady progression of disrespect and entitlement from her. At first, she'd seemed so sweet and caring, the perfect girlfriend-turned-wife for my beloved boy. But lately, her true colors were becoming impossible to ignore. Mom? What's going on? Bryce appeared in the hallway, his eyebrows furrowed with concern. Olivia immediately played the victim. Your mother is overreacting. I was just looking at her jewelry. I shot her a withering look. She had my earrings and was about to flush them down the toilet. What? Bryce's jaw dropped as he turned to Olivia. Is that true? She scoffed in feigned indignation. Of course not. Why would I do that? The denial only infuriated me more. Don't lie. I caught you red-handed. Bryce held up his hands, clearly overwhelmed by the confrontation between us. Ever the peacekeeper, just like his father. Okay. Let's all just calm down, he urged. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? After what I'd witnessed? My own son was making excuses for her repetitive, concerning behavior. I took a deep breath, fighting the swell of anger and disappointment. Bryce had always been so kind-hearted, so loyal to family. How could he be so blind to the truth about his wife? Bryce, you need to have a serious talk with your wife about respecting boundaries and people's property, I stated firmly. This has gone too far. Olivia jutted out her chin defiantly. I don't need to be scolded like a child. As the two continued bickering, I clutched the earrings tightly in my fist, wondering just how far Olivia's disrespect would go, and what I'd have to do to make her see the consequences. A few days after the earrings incident, Bryce dropped another bombshell over dinner. Olivia and I are going to move in here for a little while, he announced casually, as if discussing the weather. I nearly choked on my food. Excuse me? You're moving back in? Olivia nodded sweetly. Just until we can get back on our feet financially. How long is a little while? I pressed, my voice tight. The last thing I wanted was that woman living under my roof again. Bryce shrugged. A couple months, tops. My job cut my hours, and Olivia's paycheck barely covers her student loans. Of course, the classic excuse. I bit back a sarcastic remark, forcing a strained smile. Well, I suppose that would be all right, for a short period. 2 months turned into 4, then 6. All the while, Olivia treated my home like a hotel, lounging about and leaving messes everywhere for me to clean up after her. The disrespect was maddening. Don't you have any pride? I finally erupted one morning, gesturing at the pile of dishes and clutter she'd left in the living room. This isn't how I raised your husband. Olivia rolled her eyes. Relax, Francine. I'll get to it later. It's Mrs. Lawrence to you, I snapped. And later isn't good enough. This is my house. She sneered. Well, I'm Bryce's wife. I have as much right to be here as you. The audacity of that comment left me speechless. As much right? I was the homeowner, the one allowing them to stay rent-free out of the goodness of my heart. When Bryce returned home, I wasted no time venting my frustrations. Your wife is being completely disrespectful and lazy, I fumed. If she's not going to follow the house rules, she needs to find other arrangements. To my dismay, Bryce simply made more excuses for her behavior. Come on, Mom. You know how stressed she is with her job situation right now. Cut her some slack. Some slack? I threw up my hands. I'm already doing her a favor letting you both stay here. The least she could do is be a decent house guest. Bryce sighed heavily. Look, we'll try to help out more around here. But you've got to ease up. All this negativity towards Olivia is pushing her away. Pushing her away? The sheer audacity of his words left me stunned, as if I were the one being unreasonable. Over the following weeks, Olivia's entitled, lazy behavior only worsened. She'd lounge around all day while I cleaned up after her messes. Petty arguments became frequent as I struggled to lay down boundaries in my own home. The stress was becoming overwhelming. One evening, I finally reached my breaking point. Gathering the last shreds of my patience, I cornered Bryce in the kitchen. "This situation isn't working," I stated bluntly. "Olivia has got to go, or I'll be forced to take legal action." Bryce's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're going to kick out your own son? Over some household chores?" I shook my head, my voice strained. "Don't make this about you, Bryce. Your wife is the problem here. She's shown nothing but disrespect in my house." As the argument escalated, Olivia came sauntering in with a smug grin. "Having a family meeting without me?" she taunted. That insufferable, entitled attitude, something had to give before I lost control completely. But Bryce was too blinded by love to see the truth about his wife's despicable nature. I could feel my control over the situation rapidly slipping away. The tension in the house was becoming unbearable. Olivia's laziness and lack of respect only escalated, while Bryce remained stubbornly blind to her misdeeds. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. One night, Bryce dropped another bombshell during dinner. "Olivia and I have decided to stay a while longer," he announced cautiously, "at least until we can afford our own place again." I stared at him in disbelief. "You're kidding, right? You've been mooching off me for 6 months already." Olivia scowled at my choice of words. "We're not mooching. This is difficult for us too, you know." "Difficult?" I scoffed. "All you do is lounge around while I clean up after you. This is my home, not a hotel." "Mom, please," Bryce began, using that infuriatingly placating tone. "We're just asking for a little more time. Where else are we supposed to go?" I opened my mouth to protest, but Olivia swiftly cut me off. "Don't be so selfish, Francine. You have more than enough room here. The audacity, after everything I'd sacrificed to let them stay." "Selfish?" I shot back, my voice rising. "I'm the one who's opened her home to you. All I ask is for some basic respect and courtesy in return." Olivia rolled her eyes dramatically. Here we go again with the nagging. That arrogant, dismissive attitude was the final straw. I slammed my fist on the table, making them both jump. "That's it. I've bent over backwards trying to be accommodating, but you've become nothing but an ungrateful freeloader, Olivia. I want you out of my house." Bryce immediately came to his wife's defense, as usual. "Don't talk to her like that. We'll find somewhere else if that's how you're going to be." "Good," I shot back recklessly. "At least I'll have some peace and quiet for once." We argued bitterly until Olivia abruptly stormed off in a huff. Bryce shook his head, looking utterly dismayed. "This has gotten way out of hand, Mom. If you can't be civil to my wife, maybe it is best we make other arrangements." His words struck me like a physical blow. Was he truly choosing Olivia over his own mother? After everything I'd done for them, the thought crushed me. I suddenly felt very old and alone. I don't want that, Bryce," I managed, struggling to keep my composure. "But your wife refuses to show any respect in my own home. I'm at my wit's end here." He sighed heavily. "Then I don't know what to tell you. We're stuck in a bad situation, but Olivia is my priority now. I have to stand by her." Hearing him place that vile woman's needs over mine twisted the knife deeper. This was my own son, my flesh and blood, choosing an entitled, lazy freeloader over his own mother. I could no longer hold back the tears. "You'd really abandon your own family for her?" Bryce looked pained but resolute. "I'm not abandoning anyone, Mom. I'm just supporting my wife, like any man should." His naive loyalty sickened me. Couldn't he see how terribly Olivia was manipulating and using him? Using us both? As I watched him retreat to the bedroom, I felt a cold sense of dread creep over me. I was quickly losing control of the situation. And something had to be done before that awful woman took complete advantage. I may have been backed into a corner for now, but I refused to be bullied and disrespected any longer, not in my own house. If Olivia wanted a war, then I would give her one she'd never forget. In the days following our blowout argument, an uneasy truce settled over the house. Bryce and Olivia kept to themselves, while I seethed in private over her continued disrespect and laziness. The tension was suffocating. Then one morning, I noticed my diamond tennis bracelet was missing from its usual spot on my dresser. "Bryce," I called out, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "Have you seen my bracelet anywhere?" He poked his head into the bedroom with a quizzical look. "No. Why would I have your bracelet?" "Well, it's gone missing," I replied tersely. "And the only other person who's been in my room is Olivia." Bryce's expression hardened at the implied accusation. "You're not seriously thinking Olivia took it, are you?" "Of course not," I lied, struggling to keep my cool. "But it wasn't just misplaced. That bracelet was my late husband's last anniversary gift to me." A flicker of concern crossed his face, but he quickly smothered it. "Look, I'm sure it'll turn up somewhere. But accusing Olivia of taking it is really messed up, Mom." I opened my mouth to protest, but the sound of the bathroom door opening cut me off. Olivia emerged, her eyes going wide like a deer in headlights when she saw us. "Everything okay?" she asked in an artificially sweet tone. "No, everything is not okay." I snapped before Bryce could respond. "My diamond tennis bracelet is missing. The one Dad gave me right before he—" My voice caught in my throat as the implication hit me. If Olivia had stooped so low as to take that priceless, sentimental piece of jewelry. Bryce looked utterly bewildered. "Olivia wouldn't take your bracelet, Mom. You're overreacting." But I could see the panic flickering in Olivia's eyes as the realization of being cornered set in. "Well?" I pressed, taking a step towards her. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Her expression hardened. "You've already made up your mind about me, haven't you? Why should I even bother defending myself?" "Because you're accusing my wife of being a thief," Bryce interjected heatedly. Olivia whirled on him. "No, Bryce, let her rant. Let her make a fool of herself for once." The sheer audacity of her denial left me stunned. She was such an expert liar and manipulator, so skilled at twisting the narrative to her advantage. "You little brat," I seethed, barely able to contain my rage. "I know you took it. Your greedy eyes have been all over my jewelry from day one." Bryce quickly stepped between us, playing peacemaker as usual. "Enough! This arguing has to stop now. I'll stop when that gold-digging wife of yours stops stealing from me," I shot back recklessly. Olivia's eyes went wide with feigned hurt. "How dare you?" But I could see the cracks in her facade, the briefest flicker of panic and guilt that told me everything I needed to know. She had taken that bracelet and likely many other valuables over these past months. The realization made my blood boil. Not just disrespect anymore, but outright theft from her own family. I'd been more than patient, more than accommodating, only to be repeatedly stabbed in the back. If Bryce wasn't going to put his foot down, I knew I'd have to take matters into my own hands. Enough was enough. "We're going to get to the bottom of this," I stated, struggling to keep my voice steady. "And if you are responsible, Olivia, there will be consequences, serious ones." She opened her mouth as if to protest, but seemed to think better of it. A tense, furious silence stretched between us all. I could feel control of the situation rapidly slipping through my fingers, but I'll be damned if I'd let that deceitful little schemer take advantage of me in my own home any longer. After the confrontation over my missing bracelet, the atmosphere in the house was utterly toxic. Bryce remained stubbornly defensive of Olivia, refusing to even entertain the possibility that she had stolen from me. "You're letting your grudge against her cloud your judgment," he accused after another heated argument. "Olivia may be a lot of things, but a thief? Come on, Mom." His blind loyalty infuriated me to no end. How could he not see through her manipulative lies and excuses? "Then where is my bracelet, Bryce?" I challenged. "It didn't just sprout legs and walk away." He shook his head in exasperation. "I don't know. But accusing her with no proof is only going to further divide this family." Proof. The word rang in my ears like a whispered taunt. If only I had undeniable evidence of Olivia's misdeeds to make Bryce see the truth. The thought gnawed at me over the following days until a possible solution emerged. If she was so emboldened to steal from me in my own home, chances were it wasn't her first offense. I needed a way to catch her red-handed. One afternoon, while Bryce was at work, I seized the opportunity to bring up the idea to Olivia. "Since my valuables keep disappearing, I've decided to install security cameras around the house." Her eyes went comically wide at my declaration. "You're joking, right?" I leveled her with a steely gaze. "Does it look like I'm joking? I won't have any more of my possessions stolen." Her expression contorted in outrage. "This is a massive violation of privacy. I am not going to be recorded in my own home." "Your home?" I arched an eyebrow. "Need I remind you that you're a guest here, Olivia? This is my house, my rules." She opened her mouth to protest further, but seemed to think better of it. Instead, She simply glared at me with undisguised contempt. "I'm not surprised you'd stoop to such extreme paranoid behavior," she spat. "Just remember, what's recorded can be used against you too." The veiled threat didn't rattle me in the slightest. "I'm a law-abiding citizen with nothing to hide. Can you say the same?" She flinched ever so slightly at the barb, but quickly regained her composure with a disdainful sniff. "Whatever, do what you want, you miserable old bat." The cruel insult stung, but I refused to show it. I would not give her the satisfaction. Over the next few days, I meticulously set up cameras throughout the main living areas, ensuring they captured every angle. Olivia shot me venomous looks whenever she passed them, but I didn't care. One way or another, I would expose her for the lying thief she was. Bryce, however, was livid when he discovered the cameras. "Are you kidding me with this, Mom?" he erupted. "Putting surveillance in your own home? That's a massive breach of trust. Your wife is the one who broke trust by stealing from me," I countered heatedly. "I have every right to protect myself and my property." He ran an exasperated hand through his hair. "There's no proof she stole anything. This is just your grudge against her, spiraling out of control." "Then the cameras will prove her innocence, won't they?" I challenged. He shook his head in disgust. "You're going way too far with this. If you don't take those down immediately, we're out of here for good." The words struck me like a physical blow. He was really going to abandon me. His own mother, over that deceitful snake of a wife? But even more than the hurt, I felt a cold fury settle over me. If getting hard evidence was the only way to make Bryce see Olivia's true colors, then so be it. I would do whatever was necessary to protect what was rightfully mine, no matter how far I had to go. Despite Bryce's outrage over the cameras, I refused to back down. If he couldn't see reason, if he insisted on siding with Olivia over his own mother, then I had no choice but to get proof of her deceit. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the cameras to expose her true colors. I was reviewing the footage one afternoon when I spotted Olivia slipping into my bedroom, clearly thinking I was out running errands. My heart pounded as I watched her rifle through my jewelry box, pocketing a pair of diamond earrings without a shred of guilt. White-hot fury coursed through me as the evidence of her betrayal played out right before my eyes. That lying, thieving little serpent. I stormed into the living room just as she was emerging from my bedroom, the earrings still clutched in her hand. She froze like a deer in headlights. You, I sputtered, struggling to find words amid my rage. Olivia quickly regained her composure, putting on an air of feigned innocence. "Francine, I can explain. Save your lies?" I roared, snatching the earrings from her grasp. "I have you on camera, you deceitful brat, stealing from me in my own home." Her expression contorted into an ugly sneer. "So what? You've treated me like garbage from day one. I was just taking a few trinkets as compensation." "Compensation?" I echoed in disbelief. "For me opening my home to you out of the goodness of my heart? You're delusional." Olivia jutted out her chin defiantly. "It's not delusional to expect a basic level of respect and decency, but clearly that's too much for a miserable, bitter old woman like you." The cruel insult felt like a slap to the face. Before I could retort, the front door swung open and Bryce stepped inside from work. His eyes went wide at the heated confrontation before him. "What's going on here?" I whirled towards him, earrings in hand. "Your thieving wife is what's going on. I have proof, on camera, of her stealing my valuables." Bryce's gaze bounced between us, utterly bewildered. Olivia quickly tried to spin her web of lies. "Francine is twisting everything. Those are my earrings, and she just barged in and attacked me." "Don't you dare play the victim!" I raged, feeling hot tears of fury burn in my eyes. "I caught you red-handed, you ungrateful, entitled little—" "Enough!" Bryce shouted, bringing the screaming match to a halt. He turned to Olivia, his expression hardening. "Is it true? Did you steal from my mother?" For a brief moment, I saw the flicker of guilt and shame cross her face before the mask of indignation slipped back into place. "She's got her precious cameras rolling," Olivia spat bitterly. "Why don't you see the proof for yourself?" An uneasy silence fell over the room. Bryce looked utterly crestfallen, as if the reality were finally unavoidable. I need to see this footage," he said in a strained voice. "Then we can discuss." His words trailed off, the unspoken implication hanging in the air, that this could very well be the breaking point. the moment where harsh truths and consequences could no longer be avoided. I felt a grim sense of vindication as I led them to the recorded evidence. My son would finally be forced to accept his wife's deceitful criminal ways. But even that seemed like cold comfort as the divide in our family grew ever wider. Olivia's greed and cruelty had brought us to this ugly crossroads, and I feared there would be no turning back, no matter how the chips fell. After being caught red-handed on the security footage, you'd think Olivia would have some semblance of shame or remorse. But that deceitful woman remained defiant and unapologetic as ever. So I took a few little trinkets, so what? She sneered when Bryce demanded an explanation. Your mother has been treating me like a prisoner in my own home. Bryce looked utterly crestfallen as the reality sank in. Olivia, you stole from my own mother. That's not okay, no matter how you try to justify it, she scoffed derisively. Don't play dumb, Bryce. You know how miserable and controlling she's been towards me. By letting you stay here rent-free? I interjected hotly. By opening my home to you when you couldn't support yourselves? Olivia whirled on me with undisguised contempt. Oh, don't act so high and mighty. You've had it out for me from day one, you bitter old. That's enough, Bryce shouted, cutting off her vicious tirade. He turned to me, his expression pained. Mom, I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I never imagined Olivia could stoop so low. His words should have given me solace after all her cruelty and disrespect. But they only filled me with dread over what vile act she might attempt next. Sure enough, in the following days, Olivia's behavior took an even darker turn. She stopped speaking to me entirely, shooting venomous glares my way while making snide comments under her breath, an unrelenting campaign of intimidation. Then the really twisted games began. First, it was little things, my belongings going missing only to turn up in bizarre places, my reading glasses stashed in the freezer, my sewing kit dumped into the toilet, juvenile pranks clearly designed to upset and unnerve me. When I tried confronting her about it, she'd play dumb with that infuriatingly innocent look. Maybe you're just losing your marbles in your old age, Francine? I knew she was responsible, could feel it in my gut. But without proof, Bryce seemed hesitant to accuse his wife of such cruelty. The final indignity came when I received a letter stating that an anonymous complaint had been filed against me for running an illegal boarding house out of my home. This has gone too far, Olivia, I erupted after reading the sickening letter. Trying to get me evicted from my own property? Over what, some stolen jewelry? She blinked up at me with those big doe-like eyes. Whatever are you talking about, Francine? I've just been keeping to myself like you wanted. The blatant lies and gaslighting were enough to make my head spin. How could someone be so utterly devoid of conscience or empathy? Bryce stepped between us, looking just as overwhelmed and dismayed as I felt. Mom, you can't seriously think Olivia is behind that fraudulent complaint. Of course I do, I shot back, fighting the urge to slap that smug look off Olivia's face. She's been tormenting me for weeks as payback for exposing her as a thief. Olivia's expression hardened like ice. You're the one making ridiculous accusations with no proof, as usual. I'm just the victim here. The audacity of her playing the victim after all she'd put me through, it was unforgivable, unconscionable. In that moment, something inside me finally snapped. I would no longer be bullied and tormented by this vindictive, entitled little monster. Not in my own home. If she wanted a war, then she had better be ready for the fight of her life. Because this time, I would not back down until I had justice, no matter what it took. After Olivia's cruel attempt to have me evicted, I knew I had to take decisive action. Her escalating campaign of intimidation and torment had gone too far. It was time to fight fire with fire. First order of business was gathering all the evidence I had, the footage from my security cameras, documentation of her pranks and missing valuables, even that fraudulent complaint letter. I compiled it all meticulously into a file, my hands shaking with rage and determination. Next, I paid a visit to the best lawyer in town, a stern, no-nonsense woman named Patricia. She listened intently as I laid out Olivia's pattern of abuse and theft. This is a clear-cut case of harassment and exploitation of an elder, Patricia stated after reviewing my evidence. Not to mention the stolen valuables could constitute grand larceny charges. Relief washed over me at her blunt assessment. Finally, someone who could see the situation for what it was. So you'll take my case? Against my daughter-in-law? Patricia's expression was grim but reassuring. I don't tolerate anyone who preys on and mistreats the vulnerable. Miss Lawrence, this girl needs to be stopped by any legal means necessary. With those words, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The prospect of having the law on my side, of finally getting justice, was immensely empowering. Olivia wouldn't know what hit her. When I returned home, Bryce and Olivia were waiting with matching looks of concern. "Where have you been?" Bryce asked apprehensively. "We were starting to worry when you didn't answer your phone." I leveled a look at Olivia, filled with a new sense of emboldened calm, dealing with something I should have handled a long time ago. Her brow furrowed with a flash of unease. What's that supposed to mean? Instead of answering, I pulled out the paperwork Patricia had prepared and slid it across the table. "A restraining order petition?" Bryce sputtered, quickly scanning the documents. "And intent to pursue charges for theft and harassment?" Olivia's eyes went wide with panic. "You're insane! You can't do this!" "I am well within my rights," I stated firmly. "I have more than enough evidence of your despicable behavior, your cruelty and disrespect towards me in my own home." She opened her mouth, but seemingly thought better of protesting. A look of cold fury contorted her features. "This is a mistake, Francine," she hissed through gritted teeth. "A huge mistake." Bryce's expression was utterly crestfallen as he looked between us. I can't believe it's come to this. Mom, are you sure this is what you want?" My gaze remained steely. "Your wife has given me no choice. I will not be intimidated or taken advantage of any longer, not after everything I've sacrificed." An uneasy silence fell over the room. Olivia looked like she wanted to lash out, to rage and hurl insults, as she always did, but she seemed to recognize the severity of the situation. Finally, Bryce spoke up in a hoarse whisper. "I don't know what to say, except that I'm so sorry you felt forced into this, Mom. I really hoped Olivia and I could make things right." A pang of sadness tugged at my heart to see my only son so utterly defeated. But I knew in that moment that I had to remain resolute, to protect myself at all costs from his manipulative wife. "I'm sorry too, Bryce," I replied, hiding the waver in my voice. "But your wife made her choices, and now she'll have to face the consequences."